Shouts out Big Steve.
Welcome to the Big Brain MMA podcast. I'm your host, Big Steve, full-time MMA gambler. I've been doing this for a while. Betting on MMA for 6 years, last year and a half betting full-time, aka living off my winnings, and it's going good. If you're a full-time listener of this channel, you would know that I put out breakdowns every week for UFC or regional promotions, betting it down from a betting perspective so we can make some money. I decided to start this series and break down, do different kind of episodes where I'm actually talking about things you can do in gambling or different topics. I do have a Discord, but it's not about people tailing my picks. It's about educating people on how to actually bet and how to potentially do this themselves one day, or even if they're not interested in full-time gambling, just to make some money on the side, you know, without tailing other people blindly, but just building their own skill set. I'm not a guru by any means. It's more so, you know, I've got here after 5 years. I never thought I would. It's just one thing led to another. At the moment, I find it quite easy, and I believe anyone can do it. It just depends on how many hours you put in. This is what works for me. So if you like this episode, leave a comment, give me more ideas about topics. So the first episode is going to be about full-time MMA betting. All right, I thought I'll keep it simple for this one, see if it works. It's what I do, what works for me, and how I bet full-time. The top 3 things that I think you need to do before even considering MMA betting yourself. So step number 1, you need a big bankroll or savings. Right, so no matter how good you are at betting, I wouldn't really just go in full time without any savings or without a bankroll, just assuming that you're going to win and pay your bills, you know, because you think you're so good, because you never know what's going to happen. There's losing in betting no matter what. There's variance, there's rough cards, you know, down slopes, up slopes. Even worse off than that is if you don't have much money on your bankroll and you're paying your bills with that bankroll, you might be scared to take shots on big dogs and bets where there's not much value that you don't think are locks. You don't want to do that. You don't want to be scared to play. You always want to have money to fall back on. So big bankroll is the most important thing, so you can go through the bad periods and still have money to pay the bills, and savings even better. You know, save up some money. If things go wrong, you're not going to go broke. Step 2, have a steady, reliable betting method that works for you, that you've trialed out and it works. For me personally, you know, 5 years, 6 years now, I've been trying, you know, all different kinds of betting methods, right? I spent way too much time taping fights, going with specific props only, you know, round 1 submission, because I taped so many fights, you know, of a fighter, amateurs, professional, and I just know, you know, when he's going to slow down, and I know the other opponent is susceptible to subs, and I could just guess and know the best odds. I've gone to playing every single fight on the card and hedging the most likely chance of losing, just parlaying. I've done it all, chasing badly when I'm down, just to squeeze out a profit, and if it doesn't work out, I'm down big. But now I've settled on my method, which ultimately made me confident to do this full time. You might say it's a bit of a boring method. I don't have big swings. I don't have 20 unit swings, 30 unit, you know. I'm never going to be able to sell myself as an amazing betting service, for example, because, you know, oh, look at this, I just made 30 units, 40 units. When there's a bad period in MMA, I usually just end up breaking even, having small losses. And when I have a good card, you know, a couple of units, 3 units, 4 units, I end up winning big. So I rarely lose. I lose on average 1 month per year. That's because I'm just very disciplined. I pick my spots. I try not to force anything. I will still force something. It's very hard to be extremely disciplined over the whole year, but it's a marathon. If you can be disciplined more than not, it's going to work out. But yeah, have a style that you're confident in, that you know that if you lock in a bet, it's going to win because you have an edge and you trust your process, and that's obviously going to come with time. So make sure you develop that. Don't go in with a style where you fluctuate 10 units up, 10 units down. As you can imagine, if you lose 10 units that week and you need to pay the bills, you need to pay the insurance, it's not going to be good for your health, especially if you didn't do step 1 and you also don't have a bankroll. So make sure you have a good steady process where you mostly win, and when you lose, you don't lose big. So it's minimizing your risk and maximizing your profit, always protecting your capital. And step 3, and the final step that I think is important, is having big units, right? So your unit is the sizing of your bet. So 1 unit is, for example, my unit size is 1,500. I recently upped it this year. A lot of people use pointers like 1 unit is 1% or 5% or 3% of your bankroll. So if you have 30,000 or whatever, you know, you bet this much. But yeah, for me, it's just, when I start throwing around my units, you know, like 200 or 500, for example, and I'm putting 3 units on an underdog, because 500, it seems like an insignificant amount of money compared to my bankroll, then it's time to up it. And what I find is ultimately, the more I up my units, the more disciplined I become. So with $1,500 units, I don't want to put $3,000 on an underdog. Even though that's only 2 units, it just makes me more cautious, which goes in hand with, having a more cautious betting style, which is good for long term and for full time as well. If you have smaller units, you might be more scarce. But the other main thing is, if you have a smaller day, for example, if you just make a quarter of a unit or even half a unit, that's $750 for half a unit. And in Australia, tax-free for me, that's perfectly fine to pay the bills, even with an expensive mortgage. I've been on holidays, I've done a lot of things. I don't really save money. I try to enjoy my life. So yeah, the bigger the units are, even if you have small wins, a quarter, a third, you can still have enough money to live extremely comfortable or even well off. We'll just go over that again. So the main step is make sure you have a bankroll and a lot of savings, something to fall back on if this doesn't work out for you. Step number 2, have a good, reliable betting process. So you don't lose too much, you don't fluctuate too much up and down, and you just wipe out half your bankroll in 1 week. Something that you trust and you're comfortable in. And step 3 is obviously, big units. As soon as I get a slight chance to increase, I increase, because I know I'm not going to be throwing them away. Even $2,000 units, I'm not scared because I know I'm not going to be throwing $6,000 on anything unless I'm extremely confident. So I'm not going to wipe out my bankroll. So that's it. Nice and short video. Hopefully it was educational. I don't like using educational because I'm not a teacher or anything. It's just a guy doing what he loves, his passion. Tell me if this is something you want to see more of, different episodes. And if it is, leave a topic. For example, I really want to do my under 1.5 rounds, how I cap under 1.5 rounds, because if you follow me on Twitter, I do have a really good under 1.5 record, and it hasn't always been like that. I've just developed it. So yeah, it's something I plan on doing more often. So if it was helpful, like and subscribe, leave a comment. Thanks for listening.